this film project takes on a whole new like level of poignancy and deepity in the
Depth.
final monologue. Depth.
Oh,
Man,
deepity.
All right, this is the old podcast. Fuck no.
I'm keeping it. This is the O podcast.
Correction, it's not the O podcast, it's the O podcast.
Yes, the OH capital letters, period.
And the inspiration for this is that a lot of the movies that we watch and a lot of the movies we're going to be discussing on this series are going to elicit that exact reaction because they are terrible.
Yes.
So when a movie really sucks to the point where it causes you physical pain, sometimes all you can say after it's over is, oh.
Yes, but today we are talking about a film. I guess it's a short film that was found on Amazon Prime through me digging through complete trash, trying to find the worst thing, and it turns out I found something that isn't the worst thing ever made. We should probably talk about that night and the fact that we tried to watch 5 other movies, and The Pig Witch was the first one we saw, and it was the best.
Yeah, and it was really the only one of the night that's really worth commenting on. The last one was, but we may get to that, we may not. But there was one correction I wanted to make, which was, yes, it is a short film, but not like short in the sense of being 15 minutes like a normal short film. It's like about the length of a TV episode.
Yeah, so it's like 40 minutes, 41 minutes, 49 seconds.
Right.
It's by writer, director, actor, possible composer, William Sikora III. Mm-hmm. And before we talk about this movie, I do want to say this. I will watch every film he makes now. There's 3 other horror films that he has made, horror short films that he's made, and I am going to watch all of them. I follow him on Instagram now. He seems like an awesome person. But we have to talk about The Pig Witch.
Yeah.
And maybe some choice words about it.
Yeah.
Even though it's not a complete pile of trash, you know.
Yeah, this was our introduction to the cinematic universe of William Sikora. So, like, a few things were obvious to us from the beginning, which is this movie didn't cost a lot of money, and this is an amateur film production. However, there are certain things that stood out to us in the construction and execution and shooting of this film that indicate that William Sikora does have some raw talent. Would you agree?
Yeah,
and that he wanted to make something good. That he didn't. Yes. He wasn't making, when he made this movie, he wasn't thinking, oh, this is just a piece of garbage that I'm making with my friends. He took it seriously. He attempted to produce something poignant, powerful, interesting, fast-paced, and scary. Now, whether he succeeded in all those things, we'll get to. He probably didn't succeed in all of them, but some of them maybe he halfway did. But it was interesting enough to view this that it is worth having a discussion about.
Rather than worth 40 minutes of your life.
Well, a lot of these types of movies are extremely lazy, repetitive, and just unwatchably bad because they just, we were talking about one of the other movies we watched the same night we watched this, which was about twice as long, but had even less plot than this did. So, a lot of these movies, they pad themselves out to 80 minutes with bullshit like repetitive shots of cars driving down the road when you only need one establishing shot. William Sikora doesn't do that. He keeps it down to 40 minutes. He keeps the plot moving.
Well, and that's what I like, is he could have so easily padded this out to 80 minutes. He could have had like 20 minutes of car driving and just bullshit dialogue that no one needed to hear. He could have done that. But he didn't. He recognized, that's boring as hell. What if I just establish that they're driving, have a quick conversation in the car, and then let's get to the Pig Witch stuff? That's what they're here for anyway. Like, why am I going to show them pointlessly driving? Like, that doesn't have anything to do with what like I'm trying to convey in my film.
And the bulk of the movie is just William Sikora versus the Pig Witch. There aren't really many secondary characters, but the secondary characters that do appear, they're not given a backstory. I mean, they're just kind of like thrown into the movie.
One of them is.
Sort of.
The girl is, because the girl's brother is the one. We should probably talk about the plot before we get to.
Yeah, because now we're throwing in details of a movie that we haven't even bothered to describe yet. So
the first like 5 minutes is like artsy shots of rain and houses, and that kind of needed a still cam for some shots. There's an extra artsy shot of him standing up behind or in front of blinds in a dark room.
Right. So the movie opens. The movie opens with dawn, like at the middle of the night, and it's raining outside. And then William Sikora wakes up. He lives alone, and then he does a sort of like sad middle of the night. I can't sleep because I'm traumatized by something routine, where he splashes water over his face, and then he walks around in his underwear, gets a glass of water, looks sad, and then goes back to bed.
Well, someone also calls him in the middle of the night, and then there's no conversation. It's just him talking, like exposition dialogue about his past.
But essentially what is established in the first few minutes is that William Sikora, this is a year from when William Sikora was like lost in the wilderness or doing some kind of hike, and then he captured footage of what has become known as the legendary Pig Witch.
We should also say that Sikora is literally the director's last name as well as the character's first name in this movie. So when we say Sikora, we're literally talking about the director and the actor and the character all at once, kind of.
This film is William Sikora. He wrote it, he produced it, he directed it, he did the music for it, and he stars in it.
Now, the music thing we'll get to, but...
Yeah.
So he wakes up and then suddenly turns on the TV, and there's like, at the beginning of a news reel that lasts for probably 5 minutes that goes on interviewing all these random people that have nothing to do with anything, talking about this folklore.
Well, basically they're describing their reactions to the viral video that William Sikora posted. And the viral video is of the Pig Witch. We don't actually see the Pig Witch anywhere in the viral video, but it's implied that William Sikora had a traumatic experience while he was filming this event and maybe lost some friends.
Yeah, so his 3 friends went missing because of the Pig Witch, and he escaped.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what was going on, and that's why he's so trauma-stricken.
Yeah,
and there's a scene where he had to go to court, and he was like released of all the charges, and then they had a shot of him walking into the elevator, supposedly being followed by flashes of reporter cameras, but really it was just a like shitty flash effect that he...
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I had completely forgotten that detail. But anyways, he's traumatized by what he filmed a year and what he experienced the year before. Yeah. He is alone, depressed, and addicted to some kind of pill. They don't really tell us what they are.
I mean, it's just ibuprofen.
Oh, okay, so he's addicted to pain pills because he hurts from what happened. But anyways,
some sort of pill, and honestly, I could probably look at that and say, William Sikora probably went through something like this, not with the Pig Witch, but like he probably went through some sort of trauma where he was addicted to drugs and then got over it and wanted to make a film about it, and it happened to like horror movies, right? Mm-hmm.
So he is haunted by the experience that he had, and he has not adequately come to terms with it yet. That's how the character is like established at the beginning, that like he's haunted by his experience and he has not like made peace with what happened to him. And he's trying to, instead of like confront it head on, he's trying to walk away from it and forget it and avoid, any further involvement in the Pig Witch thing. But then we get to the next phase of the film where he is pursued, or not pursued exactly, but followed by a woman whose brother was killed by the Pig Witch, and she approaches him in a parking lot while he's awkwardly pushing his cart and pretending not to notice that she's following him. He gets in his car, is approached, and then the girl offers him $5,000 to take her to the location where her brother was killed, which is where he shot the Pig Witch video.
Now, one might wonder, well, at this point, why doesn't he just give her directions
Yes,
to where
we
the
did
pig
wonder
witch
that.
is? Because, well, then the movie wouldn't have happened. But like,
Yeah.
this
That's
guy
one of
is
the
trauma
issues.
stricken though. Like, why would he be like, yes, I'll go back? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like he'd be like, I'm not going back, but here's where it is.
Yeah, and it's clear
You
that
know?
he does recall exactly where he shot the footage because they then show him driving there, which, begs the question, why doesn't he just like point out on a map where she should go in order to find the location that the footage was shot in? That is a major, that's major oh no in terms of plot construction, and it kind of makes the movie not, entirely unnecessary that it even exists. But if you're willing to forgive that, well, you know what? Here, I can throw this movie a bone. Think about this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe William Sikora accepted the $5,000 and decided to drive to the location because even though he is telling himself, I want to suppress this memory and not have anything to do with this anymore,
Yeah.
he knows at his core that he has to
conquer this demon that's just possessing him.
Yeah, so the
him
car
an addict.
ride as he's approaching it, he becomes increasingly anxious and oh no, and he's like, I don't want to be here, I'm not getting out of the car, I don't want to have anything to do with this, but he secretly knows that this is the path to the redemption.
Yeah, it's kind of like, an alcoholic stumbling into an AA meeting. Like, they don't want to go, but let's see what happens. Maybe there's something here that can help me. It's kind of like that, except instead of that, we have shitty camera footage of him driving in a car with. So it's not just the girl that's coming though. There's suddenly two new characters that have been introduced that we know nothing about. One of them I can assume is the girl's boyfriend.
Yeah.
But then there's this other dude who's just sitting in the passenger seat complaining about not wanting to be there the whole time.
Yeah.
Which begs the question of why is this character even in the film and why did he even go?
We're given no explanation of who he is except that he's Sikora's friend and he was invited on this trip and he accepted it, but then, can do nothing but complain about how he doesn't want to be on the trip. You might say that he's interested in getting a cut of the $5,000 that Sikora was given, and I think he does mention that.
He does bring that up.
So maybe he's just along so that he could get a slice of what Sikora was paid. Maybe Sikora's if you go along and to support this journey, I'll give you a little cut of the $5,000. So.
Jonathan, watch this.
Oh no!
Look at this.
Alice.
Oh
no. Are we recording again?
yes.
Okay, so we had a little debate about this. We have children who live in this house where we're recording this podcast, and they like to interrupt at key moments. So either Jonathan will edit this out, or we'll just say, oh no, at the obvious edit, and then just continue talking about the movie. So
Okay.
anyways, let's keep talking about this.
Anyway, so the girlfriend needs to pee. So she gets out of the car to pee, and maybe 10 seconds later, the boyfriend's like, "What's taking her so long?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go find her in
I
the
mean,
woods."
you would think it would be common knowledge
Yeah.
that Sikora would be aware of that it takes women longer than 15 seconds to urinate in the woods, but apparently he wasn't aware of that. So the woman who paid the $5,000, she suddenly has to urinate and she can't wait. So Sikora has to pull off and she goes off into the woods to pee. And then 15 seconds later, everybody in the car gets anxious and decides that she's disappeared. And they have to get, and the boyfriend character, we don't actually know if he's the boyfriend, but he appears to be.
Yeah.
Goes off into the woods to look for her, and for some reason takes the keys to the vehicle.
He takes the keys because he thinks they'll leave them there.
Okay, so he goes
The
off.
original deal was that William Sikora wasn't going to stick around and was going to leave them there.
Fair enough.
He said, "I will leave you at the place where your brother died. I am not staying around." They're like, "Okay," and then they got in the car. So
Well, they're not at the
was
place where the brother got killed yet. See, this is part of the problem with this plot. The girl had to stop to urinate before they get to the location he's taking them to, yet in this location that they stopped, that is that is like a few miles. I don't know. You don't know exactly how much, but it's obviously several miles at least before they get to the spot where he shot the footage. However, this is where the encounter with the pig witch starts. So the pig witch apparently anticipated that they were going to stop before they got to the location of the footage, and is now going to begin killing and stalking and killing them.
Well, you can't expect the pig witch to just hang around the same spot. I mean, that's not really a good idea.
But isn't it like it's kind of cool, like, you know, very like a happy coincidence that the pig witch just happens to be roaming the area that they had to stop for the girl to take a pee at?
Well, it's a major coincidence and also a flaw of the film.
Correct. But let's get back to the boyfriend who went looking for the girl.
Yeah, because now
he finds a way to break his leg by tripping on, you know, a half-rotted board on a bridge. And he trips and breaks his leg.
So basically what William Sikora did is he was out scouting, and they found a broken bridge. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, you know what? There's a broken slat there. We should pretend that that the bridge somehow broke while you were crossing it and collapsed in this horrific manner, and then like your leg gets caught in like the broken like slat. Like that that is a scene that happened. Like they thought this would look good, and they assumed that like we should be convinced that somehow this bridge collapsed and that he's in dire trouble because his knee is stuck in a board and above a creek that might be 5 feet.
Yeah, and this is William Sikora exploiting a horror movie motif where as soon as people go into the woods, they just suddenly become like wildly incompetent and prone to like trip and sprain their ankles and break their legs and get injured in various ways that makes them, you know, easy prey for whatever creature is menacing them, right?
Right, and I mean, there's a lot of other things that he blatantly rips off later, so I'm not really surprised that there's like cliches and like that in this film.
But it just struck me. I don't know about you, but the whole leg breaking on the bridge thing struck me as an incredible contrivance that was just an excuse to get rid of this character. Like, I don't think, like, because William Sikora really, where he's ultimately going with this is that it's him against the pig witch.
Yeah, it's his story.
So he has to eliminate the secondary characters. And so he's getting rid of the first secondary character, who's the D-bag boyfriend, by having him, like, somehow break his leg on a rotted bridge plank. And he doesn't last long after the bone break. Like, what happens? Like, he goes... doesn't he go stumbling off and then he gets attacked and killed, like, almost immediately?
This is when the pig witch shows up.
Yes.
So this is the first time we see the pig witch. And the pig witch is, like, in a cloaked hoodie. We don't see his pig face right now. And he just kind of, like, runs up behind a bush. And then, like, they just kind of abandon... They try to bring him off of the broken bridge. And then they just, like, leave him in a field. And that's, I think, when the pig witch comes and takes him. Or kills that character.
Yeah, he doesn't abduct him and put them in the attic dungeon like he did with other characters. He just kills the guy.
Maybe.
So, and I think the pig witch maybe... See, we don't... That's another thing we don't ever get an explanation of, is why the pig witch abducts and chains up some people and just automatically kills others. We don't really know what his selective process is. Or her. I don't know if the pig witch is male or female, or, you know, a Nears or a Z. But,
oh, no.
But,
we're going to get so many dislikes for that.
No, we're not.
Oh.
Well, no one's going to watch this anyway.
Well, what if the pig witch is? Anyways.
Well, then they go back to the car, and then night happens. So the pig witch, like, he calls it a quits. He's like, I have my one victim. And then just kind of leaves them alone. And then they're in the car at night, and that's when the pig witch attacks, and that's when we really start seeing the pig witch.
Yes.
And honestly, the mask looks kind of creepy.
Yeah, there is a scene. So the first scene in which Sikora encounters the pig witch is effective in the sense that the pig mask looks creepy. There's a genuine sense of menace. However, the shot is illuminated by a very obvious studio light. Like, they don't even attempt to make it seem like moonlight is illuminating the scene.
No,
it's just a studio light that was like pointed towards the car so that you could see the people in the car and the pig witch
Honestly,
circling
it
it.
might have just been the like guy's car lights.
Could have been that
It
too.
could have just been his brights were on, and that's what was illuminating the shot. Like,
I mean, there are ways to illuminate a night scene that are less, obviously like a studio light than that, or obviously car lights, because like you could have light coming in from an angle above, indicating that it's moonlight. Correct?
yeah, you could
Like,
literally
they could
shoot
have
at
done
night
that.
or day for night if
They could have done day for night, or they could have at least shone the studio light from above so that it would have looked like moonlight. We could have been like, oh, it's supposed to be the moon illuminating the pig witch's face, but no, it just comes in from the side.
Honestly,
So it's
what
like
would have
there's
been
a
effective is
light.
Just give him a flashlight to shine on the fucking thing. Like, just give him a
That-
flashlight, shine it on the pig face, and that's creepier.
Yeah, that would have
Like-
been better.
It's better than like, where is this light coming from? Like, oh.
I just wish we could have consulted with William Sikora before he made this film, because there's so many things that like just little tweaks would have made them more professional looking.
Yeah.
But I think he's kind of like, I know you were like looking him up and you thought, oh, this guy seems cool. He'd be fun to hang out with. But I think he's probably a little bit of an egomaniac, where like I feel like he's the type of director who does not want to take advice from anybody. He's like, this is my project. I know what I'm doing. I'm making a good film, and nobody's going to tell me otherwise.
It's
and I'm going to have this
possible. I
scene.
don't know, though.
I'm going to have this scene where the pig witch surrounds my vehicle, and I'm going to illuminate it with a studio light from the side. So there's like an off-camera source of light that makes no sense in a natural way. Like, that would not happen. If you were in the woods, if you were parked on the road in the middle of the wilderness, there's not going to be a light from the woods beside your car shining into the car and illuminating the scene. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I kind of had flashbacks. Do you remember that scene in Paranoia, that Brad Jones movie, where like there's a scene where he gets out of his car and there's an obvious studio light just shining on him standing outside of the car?
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that light would exist in any other form than a studio light.
Right.
Like, it's stuff like that. It's
Well,
just,
what-
it takes you out of the film.
So that we can move on to the next
Yeah,
phase
we
of this,
need to
I
do
think
it.
what we're establishing is that in some of these like amateur homemade films, lights, unnatural lights that could not actually happen in reality exist. So like in the world of William Sikora and Brad Jones, there's just like lights, just random lights everywhere that illuminate night scenes. That's just a reality of this cinematic universe. Now moving on. The pig witch does not kill Sikora.
He's been captured from the car.
Yes, he captures him, and then there is a dungeon. There's a pig witch dungeon, which appears to be the director's attic.
There's like a filing cabinet. In one shot, there's like a tool bench thing.
Yeah.
So like this is obviously his basement
It's his
attic.
garage, attic,
garage.
or basement.
Yes.
But it is supposed to be the pig witch's dungeon. And then this part, I'll let you discuss this
It
scene.
might be a shed. It might be a shed.
I'll let you discuss the scene because I'm not really sure what was going on with the other victims in the dungeon. There's a guy who it's implied he's been chained up there for a while because he's like lost his mind. So there's another guy in the dungeon with Sikora who just sort of mumbles incoherently. And William Sikora is afraid that they're going to get butchered by the pig witch if they don't keep their voices down, which doesn't make any sense because they're chained up. So clearly the pig witch knows that they're there, and it doesn't matter if they speak or scream or don't say anything. They're chained up.
Well, one of the first thing that happens is that the pig witch comes in and just like takes one of the side characters, and then like you hear like eating noises, and then a chainsaw goes off. This is important. We will get back to this later, but remember, the pig witch has taken a victim, and he is using a chainsaw to kill them. Okay? We'll get back to that later. But when he comes in with this like jagged knife. That's another important detail. He comes in with a long jagged knife. However, there's no shot of the pig witch, to my knowledge, maybe I'm wrong, holding the actual knife. It looks like they like got a hold of this knife somehow, this like cool relic, and then just were filming the knife in certain ways and then edited it in.
It's probably something that
I don't know.
Sikora shot for another project, and he's like, I'm gonna like splice this into Pig Witch because it's gonna look like the Pig Witch has a cool weapon.
It could have
Except
been demo
we don't,
footage.
because we never
Yeah.
see the Pig Witch holding it. We don't see the Pig Witch using the weapon. And if you later in the film, when William Sikora has his showdown with the Pig Witch's weapon of choice is a fucking stick.
It might have
So-
been a fake knife, but it looked like a stick. I'm not even sure if he had a weapon at the end. We'll get to that.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
But I want to get to this like scene in the attic shed place because something happens, and it was a simple decision that completely fucked any sort of like fear or atmosphere of the Pig Witch's impending like massacre of these people. So like they take the guy, and then like there's a scene where it flashes on the screen like 2 or 3 days later, something like that.
Right.
And then it's just William Sikora and the other guy just sitting there in like basically the same position as they were 2 days ago or 3 days ago. Probably malnourished, probably not drinking water, probably not being fed, probably having to sit in the same room as their feces and urine. And they're perfectly the same. They're still in the same amount of distress that they were 3 days ago. They should be on the brink of death because 3 days is how long you can go without water. And
Actually, I
then
think
William,
it's 7.
Is it 7?
Yeah.
I thought, oh no.
I think it's like 10 days without food.
10 without
7
food.
without water, you can survive. But anyways,
Oh.
go on.
Anyway.
Plus,
Anyway.
you can drink your own urine, so...
No, you can't.
Yeah, you can.
Oh.
Yes, a lot of people drink their own urine
There's
in
bacteria
situations...
in it that can make you sick.
Jonathan, that is not the
Oh.
true biology of urine. Urine
Yeah,
has no
yeah.
bacteria in it. It's sterile.
No, it's not
Because
sterile.
it has
That's like a
ammonia in
myth. Yeah. We'll look up the urine thing later. In any case,
Dude, for anyone listening to this, look it up.
Yeah,
Can you
we'll
drink
look
your
it up.
own urine? The answer is yes, because it does not have bacteria in it. Jessica looked this up the other day, and she confirmed it, that there's like it's substance, either ammonia or urea in urine, that makes it safe to drink because it's actually even cleaner than most water.
Then I don't know anything.
All right. Anyways, we don't know.
we don't know about the urine. But okay, this is the point I'm getting to, is that they're sitting
I
there.
mean, do you think William
Three-
Sikora thought all this through? I mean,
No,
now we're
because-
overanalyzing.
Because 3 days, no, this is not over analysis. Hold on, because 3 days, it says like 3 days later, and then he's like, hey man, I need that key. So William Sikora has been sitting in his shed for 3 days with this crazy guy with
Or
the
his
key.
attic.
Or his attic, with the guy who has a key. And he's like, hey man, can I have the key? And the guy's like, yeah, here. That's basically what happened. Well, actually, the pig witch comes in, takes the guy with the key, and then there's a bad CGI shot of him throwing the key to William Sikora. But if he had the key, why did it take 3 days to get the key from this guy to get out of the pig witch's lair?
Could it be again? Could it be Sikora's commentary on like his own like symbolic commentary on his own like inaction with regards to his addiction? Like, you know, there were like obvious things I should have done, but I just waited and waited and waited and let the problem go on.
That's all well and good, but when the solution is ask the guy next to you for a fucking key, you failed. I'm sorry. There's other ways to convey that thought.
All right, let's just establish that the attic dungeon scene doesn't make any sense and sucks. That the pig witch appears to have a sort of like serrated knife weapon that we don't see it use at all. We just see a hand holding the weapon, and then there's no footage of it being used.
Wait,
And
does that
that
say 30?
one
Oh,
of
that's 3 days.
one of the guys in the dungeon has a key, and then Sikora. It didn't occur to William Sikora to ask for it until he'd been sitting there starving and being dehydrated for 3 days. All right, so the dungeon scene sucks. But then we get to what I call the epic conclusion.
The epic conclusion is good.
Yeah, so the last, 15 minutes of the movie are the epic conclusion. This is after William Sikora escapes from the attic.
So he escapes from the attic, and he goes in the woods to start making traps.
Wait, and before we get to that, let's just, mention one thing, because we mentioned earlier in the movie, the girl went out into the woods to pee. Okay, she shows up briefly again for 5 seconds and then gets killed by the pig witch.
Yeah.
She just appears again and then dies.
So
that's it for that character.
Might have been shot after production.
Yeah.
Because I think he'd been like, oh no, we didn't conclude that character. And
it's
then
entirely possible.
Let's just add a 5-second shot where she's looking at a house and then gets killed by the pig witch. That's easy to film.
Yeah.
Oh.
And there's other stuff. Yeah. And, let's not forget to mention, the inconsistency of the twist ending, which also, obviously it wasn't filmed in sequence.
We won't forget the twist ending.
Okay. Which it turns out doesn't make any sense. It makes even less sense than the dungeon scene because of how the pig witch gets killed, but we'll get to it. But anyways,
spoiler alert: the pig witch does get defeated, kind of.
All right, so we're about 27 minutes into the movie. All of the secondary characters have now been killed off. So he was in the car with 3 people. There was D-Bag with striped shirt, goth girl, and then the Hispanic friend guy. And I don't even remember how he died.
Then he got his leg stuck, and then they abandoned him because the pig witch came up.
Okay,
it's something.
All right, so the 3 secondary characters who were in this have all been eliminated. They're gone, and now, and I don't know what happened to Babbling Guy in Dungeon. Did he die too?
He might have just been left in the.
I think he was just left there. Apparently, Sikora didn't have the empathy to free him.
Or I think the pig witch might have taken the bald dude because he threw the key or something.
Oh right, so
anyway,
William Sikora got the key and then he was able to escape from the attic dungeon. Now this is something we have not mentioned yet, but this movie, if you want to put a nice spin on it, you can say it was influenced by several other films, better films. But then the not nice way of saying it is that it just blatantly rips them off. So, first of all, this movie rips off the Blair Witch Project by having a news footage, documentary sequence at the beginning of people talking about the pig witch, which is identical to the Blair Witch stuff, except that it's more amateurishly acted and less convincing. Okay. Now
honestly needed to be shorter because that lasted for 5 minutes.
Yeah, that was a little bit long. That was the only padding that was in this film, honestly.
That was padding.
Because most of the movie is just the plot being moved forward. Sikora is not a langorious pace type of guy. He wants to keep things moving. He failed to establish any of the secondary characters. He just threw them right into the action. So he's kind of an impatient director, but I don't mind that because I don't want to watch a bunch of padding. So the only padding was the Blair Witch ripoff sequence.
Yeah, besides that, it goes by very quickly. Now, this is a good moment to mention the soundtrack / potentially a score. But I think it's just
let's do that. But because I was talking about things that William Sikora ripped off, before I want you to go into the soundtrack. But the final 15 minutes of this movie. So we're at about 27 minutes when Sikora escapes from the attic dungeon.
Right.
The last 15 minutes are not directly ripped off, but they are heavily inspired by the finale of Predator, the Schwarzenegger film from '87. Okay? That is basically what the final epic showdown is modeled off of. But anyways, at least Sikora took influence from good movies. Go on, let's talk about the soundtrack.
Well, because at the beginning of the movie it said soundtrack by, or it might have said score, but I think it said soundtrack by William Sikora III. So, but when I was listening to the soundtrack in this movie, I'm like, this is actually pretty good. He's actually a pretty good composer. Maybe he should work on film scores. Yeah. That's obviously the best thing about this movie is the score. But then I realized it said soundtrack and that it was just classical music and maybe some stuff he might have composed on his synth that wasn't
We
too
don't
bad.
we don't know for
I don't
sure.
know.
But the fact is, the sound of the music in this film is so good. It's such high quality music that it does not match what's on camera.
No, it doesn't, because it's William Sikora walking through the woods creating this trap, and like it's just him walking around picking up leaves and logs and sticks. But then there's like this orchestral Hans Zimmer-esque booming percussion and like string instruments and people, operatic, like they're going on.
It sounds very, it sounds like something that belongs honestly in a big budgeted action film.
It does. It sounds like the Braveheart soundtrack or something like that.
Right.
Like it. Yeah.
So it's interesting.
It's
so
yeah.
Just try to imagine, dear listener, who all 5 of you or however many people are going to see this, listen to this. Imagine a basically shot on video amateur film where a guy covered in mud, ripping off the end of Predator, is making a trap, which is an obvious trap, by piling up sticks and leaves in a way in which his pursuer is going to look and say, "Oh, that's the trap he made for me. Let me go over here so I don't walk into it."
Well, yeah, it's like...
So he's making a trap. He's constructing a trap. This is a shot-on-video amateur film of a guy covered in mud ripping off Predator, making an obvious trap while there's Braveheart style music playing.
Well, also, the quality of the traps needs to be talked about. Because this guy, like, he does... I forget what it's called. It's like a pit trap or something.
Yeah.
Where it's just... He digs a pit, and then he covers it with brush. But he piles the brush up so high...
Yeah.
That, like... Yeah, like you said, it's just like... I'm the pig witch. I'm running after William Sikora. There seems to be a giant pile of mysteriously man-placed, like, sticks and brush.
And Jonathan, this is not an exaggeration, but there was a part of that sequence where he was constructing the trap, where he looked at the trap and it was like sufficiently like covered with leaves and sticks, and then he's like, nah. He decided it wasn't enough.
It's not enough.
It's not enough, and he threw more sticks and more leaves on the trap to make. So it's like, okay, the basic concept of a trap is you don't realize it's a trap. Like, you walk into it because it's disguised.
Yes.
And he made it obvious that it's a trap by making a mound. Like, not just like having a flat
mound
trap.
Of leaves and sticks.
It was a mound of leaves and sticks. That is obvious to anyone with half a brain that it's a trap. So that was William Sikora's first attempt to trap the pig witch. And his second one was, okay, now we didn't confirm, we were supposed to go look at Predator and we tried to confirm this, but our memory of the movie is a little bit foggy, but we both believe there is a scene towards the end of Predator where Arnold Schwarzenegger rigs up a giant tree limb.
Yeah.
And he has it like
a log.
He has a huge like spiky log suspended high in a tree, and then like a sort of like a trip wire that will activate the limb to come down and like hit the pig witch. I believe there was such a trap in Predator that Schwarzenegger set for the Predator at the end, but I have to go back and watch the movie to confirm that, and we didn't bother to do that because we didn't have time or the inclination. But I think that was directly ripped off the end of Predator. So
now, do these traps work? Kind of, but
well,
no,
they work.
Don't.
They work in the sense that the pig witch falls into them, but the pig witch is completely unaffected by both traps.
Which questions why are we even having the scene where he's setting up the traps if it's not going to do anything?
Because we're leading towards the conclusion here, and so the pig witch falls into both traps. It falls into even though like the trap is an obvious mound of sticks and leaves, the pig witch is idiotic enough to walk into it anyways.
Yeah.
Falls in, isn't injured, and just climbs out, and then keeps running after Sikora, and then the tree limb comes down and hits the pig witch, and that also doesn't injure it or affect it in any way, and it just keeps chasing him.
No,
So-
and what movie is ripping off the shot where he has his arms wide open and like basically yells for the pig witch to come?
That's the Shawshank. Well, that's actually
No,
a
Shawshank he ripped offs later, but
that's
this
a
one's
no.
different.
This is a double ripoff.
Oh,
Because,
it is.
Yeah. So there's a scene in Predator where Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he has all of his traps set, he gets high in a tree, outstretches his arms, and just roars. Like, he doesn't say like "come and get me," but he just says "roar" to like just attract the predator. And that's what William Sikora does in this scene. He's standing in the rain, he outstretches his arms, and he yells like "come and get me." And then, but
And then
the
the pig witch
outstretched
does,
the
and the traps
outstretched
don't
arms
work.
in rain is also a shot at the end of Shawshank Redemption after Tim Robbins tunnels his way to freedom.
Oh.
Because this is called Pig Witch Redemption. So Sikora had to rip off Shawshank Redemption and Predator in the same moment, which is kind of impressive.
But then, like, literally, what? Let me look. 1 minute later, he rips off this shot in the first Harry Potter movie, where, like, Graham, you probably don't know what I'm talking about.
I've seen it.
Okay, the
Julian
shot where...
used to be into it. My son Julian used to be into Harry Potter films, so...
Okay, but you remember the shot where Voldemort, he has the hood, and then, like, is sucking the unicorn blood?
Yeah.
And then, in the black hood, and then turns around at Harry Potter, and then walks towards him? That happens in this, except it's not a unicorn, it's, like, a person or something.
Yeah, so we're at four films that Sikora managed to rip off in 40 minutes. He ripped off The Shawshank Redemption, Predator, The Blair Witch Project, and the first Harry Potter movie. Is that The Deathly Hallows, or what's the first one?
Last one, Graham.
Yeah, it is. Anyways.
Sorcerer's
Now
Stone.
you know that I don't care about Harry Potter.
Actually, it's the Philosopher's Stone. Oh.
Dude,
Anyway.
the thing that helps me think of Harry Potter is just, I can't even say the name, but we have a
Yeah, you
nickname
can.
for the Goblet of Fire. No, we can't say
Okay,
it.
we can't.
No. But anyways.
Anyway, let's get to, like, the
Yeeny.
part one of, like, the epic showdown. Because this is, like, the first truly epic moment.
Well, let's sort of
With him and the pig
and let's
witch.
reestablish that the traps
Traps didn't
despite
work.
all the buildup that occurred with the traps, they completely failed.
Yeah,
So
they-
we spent like 5 or 6 minutes watching Sikora construct traps, neither of which worked. But that's fine because we have a brilliantly it's a combination of like epic filmmaking and total ineptitude and nonsensical like plot structure. Okay, how do we explain this?
I mean, I can try. Okay, let me try to explain. So
Wait.
after neither trap works, what?
Well, I was just gonna make a quick analogy,
Yeah.
and then I want you to talk. Okay, so our 5 or 3 listeners, or however many of you there are. Okay, you know the scene at the end of an action movie where the villain and the hero are fighting at the edge of a cliff,
Yeah.
and
yeah,
either one of
exactly.
them could like fall to their deaths at any time, and it's like this like edge of your seat nail biter where they're right on the edge of the cliff. Sikora attempts to do something like that, but instead of having a literal cliffhanger, he and the pig witch walk to the top of a log that's suspended about 5 feet above a gentle stream.
It's almost like he just went outside behind his house, found a creek with the tree over it, and was like, "That's it. That is my cliff. That is where the epic showdown is. Part one of it is concluded."
Yeah.
So, like, William Sikora decides instead of crossing the stream that looks. What?
Keep talking after your...
Eh,
No, don't pause it.
I'm gonna pause it because you need to be a part of the conversation.
I just have to pee.
All right.
Okay, I'll describe the scene quickly while Gran urinates. So, William Sikora, shirtless, bloodied, and covered in dirt and mud, is climbing to the top of a tree instead of crossing the very shallow stream. Okay, so then the pig witch decides, well, instead of like standing in the water and then jumping up to get him 5 feet, I am going to climb after him. And what William Sikora then does to defeat the pig witch, who should at least have some sort of weapon on him, but I don't even think does. The pig witch is defeated by William Sikora's stick that it's supposed to portray that he's stabbing the pig witch, and that causes them both to fall into the water 5 feet below. But what it really is William Sikora pretending to stab him, but it's very visual or obvious that he did not. And then they fall into the water, right? So then William Sikora goes onto the land, and the pig witch comes back and like straddles William Sikora on the ground, and then William Sikora reaches for a stick and kills the pig witch. And that's when we have the like rip off of the Shawshank Redemption again. And then we have to talk about the resolution. The end to this film, possibly one of the best monologues I've ever heard. And what really solidified this as a movie that I could tell the director cared about.
Well, yeah, and the thing about the end monologue is like everything it puts everything that came before it into a new perspective.
Yeah,
because you understand that this story that Sikora is telling is like a personal metaphor. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't know exactly what kind of trauma Sikora experienced and then overcame, but this film project takes on a whole new like level of poignancy and deepity in the final monologue. Depth. Yeah, that's actually a Daniel Dennett term that we can discuss, but
it is.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
deepities, but anyways, that's not actually what's going on here. No, depth takes on a new depth. But like it becomes clear in the final monologue about Sikora's redemption that like this movie is a metaphor for something that he actually experienced.
It is, and the whole thing is done while he has a very serious look on his face, and he has giant bug-eye sunglasses on.
Yeah,
standing under a black umbrella while it's not raining, and it's a monologue that goes over. And I mean, I'm gonna play it right. I'm gonna play it so you guys can hear it because it is good. It's a fun monologue. It's not well written. I'm just saying it's the moment that solidified that this movie isn't complete and utter garbage.
And I would say, yeah, it's almost like this final scene is like the difference between us recommending this, or the difference between us saying don't bother, and the difference between us saying, you know what, give it a look. Because like it makes you rethink the entire rest of the movie. Now, basically what we've been doing is ripping on, the inconsistencies and like touches of amateurishness and incompetence throughout it. But like taken as a whole, it's kind of a nice little story. And the way that Sikora chooses to wrap it up at the end is very unique for this type of film. You don't see this.
Yeah, it's an actual character arc that you're watching. And it's really, it's like a book. It's like, it starts with oh no, and then at the end he overcomes the oh no. He changes. Mm-hmm. He flushes his, Advil down the toilet to signify that he's no longer going to use them. And
I don't think that was Advil, but
it was
something.
I mean,
weren't they, maybe they were like Percocets or like what?
Well, I'm sure it's supposed to be Percocet, but he did not dump a bunch of Percocet down the toilet. Who would dump that down the toilet? If you're going to do
Sikora
that, please give it to me.
He'd do it for the sake of art, but
he might. Actually, I wouldn't put that past him.
What if he was actually addicted to Percocet and like
he might have
that?
Been.
Like that scene where he flushes it down the toilet was him actually doing that with his own stash because he's like, I overcame my oh no by completing this 42-minute project.
Yeah, like
could have been that,
or maybe he just found it in his cabinet. And he's like, my God, I know how to end my movie, and then that gave him the idea for the umbrella glasses monologue.
Well, okay, and we have to talk about that too because we're going to play the monologue, but we also, there's a twist ending.
Oh,
and now it took us 2 views to realize that the twist ending makes absolutely no sense and should not have been included.
No,
if we can find a way to get in touch with this man, we're going to be like, look, William, look, you need to go back and revisit this twist ending that you tacked on to the end after this beautiful, powerful monologue. You tacked in this like cliched twist ending that doesn't even make sense in the context of how the pig witch died. or was supposedly defeated. So we'll go, but we have to play the monologue, and then we'll discuss that, and then we need to explain our rating system, give our ratings, and we will conclude this.
I never knew I had.
Oh wait, oh no. Whatever, I'll edit this part.
Just leave the bad edit. It's the first episode.
Although you may not believe me, my story is true. Through all the sacrifice it took to get me here, I could finally say I found a new strength I never knew I had. What is redemption? It is the deliverance from evil. It is getting back something that has been taken away. If it was not for this moment, I would still be hiding in darkness, in fear. Through my friends, I found strength, and I was determined to make it through.
But your friends died. They didn't cause you to find strength. They just got killed off.
Although there was sacrifice, in the end they helped me become free, and I will never forget that.
Also, there's a slow motion of this Advil being flushed down the toilet during this music.
Now I have a question for you. What does it take to find your strength? To find redemption? You may not believe me, but my story is true.
That's it.
Alright, well, that was the monologue.
Okay, now we need to go straight to the twist ending, which is the last thing.
And I have a theory about what happened to cause this twist ending to not make sense. But please tell us.
Jonathan explained earlier how the pig witch was supposedly defeated. Okay, so they were
field.
Now, well, let's
On
go
the
back.
shore.
Let's go back
Yeah.
to the fact that what initially happened was they were at the edge of the tree limb, and then they both fell into the water. Mm-hmm. All right. Now that was like a fake out. Like it was like, oh, this is over, but it's not really over.
Yeah, that's part one of the conclusion.
So William Sikora got out of the water, and he fell to his knees, and he was like, "It's over. I've finally done it." And then the pig witch jumped out of the water and attacked him a second time. Mm-hmm. And then Sikora stabbed the thing in the face with like a jagged piece of wood, right?
On land.
On
and
land.
You see the body of the pig witch on land.
So we see the dead pig witch on land, and that's the conclusion that precedes the oh yes monologue. Okay. The final shot is like, it's a typical twist ending that you would see in a lot of horror movies where, it's revealed to you at the end that the supposedly dead, like, menace is actually not dead. But what Sikora chooses to do, he pans across the water, the river that they, like, both fell into for the fake-out death, and then shows the pig witch's hand emerging out of the water, indicating that it's not dead. Now, the only way that this makes sense is if the pig witch, after being defeated on land by having its eyes stabbed out with a jagged piece of wood, climbed back into the water to drown itself, and then decided, I don't really want to drown. I want to continue killing people with my cheap pig mask. And then, emerges out of the water for one last, hurrah at the end.
Well, okay. Let me explain why I think that mistake was there. What I think happened is that originally what I think happened with this movie is the original cut probably had a shot, like the water falling down was not a fake out death. Like when he fell in the water, that was it. And then it shows him on the shore, doing the rip off of what movie did it? Which one am I thinking of that it ripped off? Where he's outstretching his arms in the rain.
Shawshank Redemption.
So we cut to the Shawshank Redemption, and then he does the monologue, and then the hand emerges from the water. That's what I think the original cut was, but I think William Sikora saw the shot of him and the pig witch slow motion falling 5 feet down into the shallow stream, and he's like, okay, this looks stupid. There's no way that the pig witch is dead after this. I can't let that be a thing. Like, I can't have that be my ending. It doesn't make sense. But in doing that, and he probably went back and shot the final, like, on land killing of the pig witch scene. But then he left in the fake out instead of editing it out after adding this new part in. That's what I think might have happened.
Yeah, and I think that, like, that confirms here I'm playing, look, that's the end of the Shawshank Redemption, just so you know. All right, I'm just confirming my, we're watching Tim Robbins outstretching his arms in the rain. I'm just proving to, like, Jonathan hasn't seen the Shawshank Redemption, so I'm just showing him that Sikora ripped this scene off. But it kind of confirms, I think, what I was suggesting earlier, which is that, like, Sikora was like, I'm going to do this all by myself. 100% of this is me. I'm not taking advice from anybody. I'm not going to have an editor, like, look over my work. I'm going to shoot, act in, write, direct, edit, and produce this film and score it entirely on my own. And there are some moments in the movie that don't make any sense because he needed a second opinion and didn't get it.
Yeah, he really needed to sit down with, like, 3 different people and, like, just have them watch it and be like, please write notes. And maybe he did, and the people he showed it to just didn't know or didn't notice. I don't know. That's possible too. But, oh no. I'm going to say this. I'm looking forward to watching his other movies. I think there's one called The Woods. They're all short horror films, by the way. And then there's one called Real Paranormal Activity. That is a 40-minute short film that has 4 short films that are probably about 10 minutes each in it. I'm looking forward to that. And he also has a puppet show for kids that I want to watch.
Yeah, and we will be covering more Sikora stuff. I think if we do another William Sikora podcast, we'll probably cover like 2 in 1. But I will point out, this may be the first time this has ever happened in movie reviewing. We spent believe that our podcast is twice as long as the movie that we covered.
We're reaching an hour at this point.
We've been talking about this for an hour?
Yes.
Okay, so
I do want to read some trivia that was written probably by William Sikora on IMDb. I haven't read this yet, so
I would really. So here's my hope for this podcast. Number one, I hope that more than 5 people, even though I was making jokes about it, I hope more than 5 people see this.
I hope William Sikora sees this and doesn't hate us.
Well, number 2, I was going to say number 2, I hope that whoever's listening to this, go and watch the movie. It's 42 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not painful.
It's on Amazon Prime.
It's not physically painful to watch. I mean, you will be entertained by, if not all of it, parts of it at least. And third, I really hope William Sikora himself sees this podcast. We may be the first, like, movie podcasters to review this film. I mean, do you think anybody else has, like, made a hour-long video talking about his 42-minute movie?
I think most people turned it off in the first minute. But
yeah, so I feel like we're giving it, we gave it a fair shake. We acknowledged some good in it and some things that William could have done better. And I think, if he's, like, receptive at all to constructive criticism, he will appreciate what we've done here.
Yeah, and I think it's a good second short horror film. Like, if I made films and this was the second horror film I made, would I be ashamed of it? Kind of. But, like, I'd still be proud of it on some level. Let's see. So the last scene was shot at a specific time in the evening and the daylight was very limited. Over 3 extra shoots were set up to capture the final few moments because there was only so much of the required light before it got too dark. Okay?
Are you reading movie trivia right now?
I am. I think William Sikora put it on a...
He probably did.
He probably did.
But I think as we wrap this up, though...
We have to rate it.
We need to explain our rating system, and then we need to give our rating.
Dude, I was right. Shot on William Sikora's property where he grew up and played. Oh, look at this one, too. Sorry, one more.
So maybe there was some childhood trauma on that property.
Maybe. It was a massive undertaking to direct his own shots and act them out. Yeah, okay. Many of the shoots required long hours outside in the 95-plus degree weather.
Oh,
so, I mean...
That may explain why he was shirtless for the whole second half of the movie.
Yeah, there's also one thing I read that I do want to William Sikora came on here and wrote a review. I can't find it right now.
No, he reviewed
He
his own
he did.
film.
He gave it a 10 star out of 10 on IMDb. But he said something like, I'm very proud of this movie and like I revisit it and think about it a lot or something like that. So like you can tell this guy really tried with this movie. He really gave it his all. So with that being said, we should probably give our rating and explain the rating system.
Also, on the off chance that anybody listening to this knows William Sikora or has his contact information, please send him this podcast. We want him to hear this. And hopefully we can befriend this man. Maybe he can help us with some of the stuff that we're interested in creating.
Yeah, and look, if William Sikora, I know you like to pick soundtrack music, but like, we will make a soundtrack for you. We make weird ambient noise stuff
unless
sometimes.
we're wrong and he actually did compose that.
If you did compose that, honestly, you have a good choice of music anyway, but if you did compose that, continue. Like, please continue.
Well, here's the thing. William, if you're listening to this, if you did in fact compose the soundtrack and you didn't just get it from a soundtrack library, I will add a point to whatever rating I give your film.
Me too.
You get an extra point. But we're going to go over our rating system here. So we have a 0 through 6 rating system.
It's like the first
Okay,
0 through 6 rating system ever.
So if your movie receives a 0, we're going to say, here's a knife, be creative. Okay, the implication being your movie was so bad that it makes us want to die.
Yeah.
If you get a 1, your movie receives what's called "oh." So that means your movie was so terrible that we can't really say anything about it at the end except "oh." If you receive a 2, you get what's called "ah, nah." So that means like that was a really painful experience, but we will recover from this, and we just need to get it out of our system and say, "Oh no." Mm-hmm. If you receive a 3, we acknowledge there were some, definitely you had a few good things, a few things that were worth watching and talking about, and it wasn't just endless repetitive shots of people driving and walking for 90 minutes. So if you get a 3, you get what's called an ene. So that's like almost all null, but ene is, it's like, okay, this could be good with a few tweaks. Now, if you get a 4, this is where the truly positive ratings come in. If you get a 4, it means generally everything you did was pretty good, acceptable, competent, and we give a casual thumbs up and what's called an ah yes. Mm-hmm. All right.
An ah yes is a good score too. An ah yes isn't like this sucks. So if we say ah yes, we're saying like pretty good. Mm-hmm.
So in summary, so far we've done 0. Here's a knife. Be creative. 1. Oh. 2. Ah nah. 3, nah. 4, ah, yes. And then a 5. Now, 5 is the second to greatest rating. This is when we were so impressed with what we saw that we just sort of stretch our arms out and say, oh, yes.
Kind of like William Sikora did.
Yeah.
We stretch our arms out in the rain and, are triggered positively by the movie.
And we say, oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
All right?
Yeah.
And now a 6 rating. This is probably not going to happen very often considering the types of movies that we're going to be reviewing on this series. But number 6 is very simple. If you get a 6, this means it's better than oh yes. It means that somehow you managed to create something that made me want to do more than outstretch my arms and say oh yes. So if you get a 6 is equivalent to I need a napkin. Mm-hmm. Okay, now you can do with that what you will. There are different human excretions that require a napkin.
Tears.
You can go with the child appropriate one, tears, and then there's the one that's not appropriate.
Like we
for
cried,
children.
it was so good.
Yeah.
And then there's the more like one.
Do you have anything else to say about our rating system before we give final judgment on this?
No, we just spent like 2 minutes on the rating system.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sitting at an with this one.
A 3.
I'm
3
thinking
and
a
an
3 because like it's not like I wasn't mad while watching it. I was just kind of sitting there, not thinking it was a student film, and then being pleasantly surprised by the thought it put into it at the end. So I give it a 3. I give it an NA. That's not the worst you could get. There were films we watched in the past 2 days that were, here's a knife, be creative. Okay, so just so you know, you are not the worst thing to ever exist. This is not a bad film, really. It's really not that bad. I mean, there is bad things about it. There's dumb decisions and like mistakes, but I don't know. What do you think?
Which have to do with Sikora's flaws as a human being, I think, because he didn't take any advice from anybody. But, so I was torn about this. So initially, I was just going to give it the same rating as Jonathan. And then, watching the monologue again and sort of microanalyzing it as we did in the past hour and 5 minutes, I kind of reevaluated a few things, and I'm like, I wish there were a 3.5 rating in between NA and yes, but there isn't. Now, is this film good enough to give it a 4 and yes? No. I can't do that in good conscience, but I'm certainly not going to downgrade it to an all in all. So
you could do the needle drop thing where you're like, I'm feeling a strong NA to light yes on this thing. Transition. You could do that.
Well, I think you just solved my problem there. Oh, and we need to wrap this up because there's a interruption. You
Alice,
have perfect timing, Alice. Okay, so before I wrap this up, I need to give my rating. Jonathan already gave it a 3, an NA. Mm-hmm. I'm also going to give it an NA, but as Jonathan said, he just referenced the needle drop. I'm giving it I'm kind of feeling an almost yes, but ultimately I can't go that high.
That's what I was thinking too.
I would like to point this out before we conclude. Mm-hmm. We haven't watched any of William Sikora's other work yet. I feel like he has the potential to make a 4 film. He can do it.
Oh no, he does. And the thing that I do want to read this really quick. So like when you look at the plot description on Amazon Prime, it's a video of Sikora documenting and discovering a pig-like creature that apparently attacked him and his friends had been spread across the internet. Some call it a hoax, some don't know how to believe. And then like, oh man, it's cut off. And then it goes on to say something like, and then a mysterious woman appears and makes him revisit the horrors that he faced years before. So like, that sounds like a good movie. And it sounds like if you threw money at him and gave him somebody to like edit his work, like maybe he shouldn't be the one editing his movies and, doing everything. Maybe if you just gave him like, you can write it and direct it, but like, let's hire some actors, let's get an editor in here, let's get someone to light this thing, let's get a sound person, let's have some people who are going to watch the film and give you good critiques, and you have to do it. Like, then you can make an all-yes film. Maybe even all-yes with William Sikora.
What do you feel
later on in his career,
What do you feel about the counter-argument that I'm sure he would make, which is, like, this was a very, very, very personal project for me?
I'm sure it was.
And he himself said it. I mean, he said it in the IMDb rating that he posted on his own. Oh, man.
That should just be the intro. Here goes Keyboard Dog. Oh, no.
Fine. Yeah, that'll work. Maybe we shouldn't call this the old podcast. We should just call it, like, the interruption. Alice, we're trying to finish a video here. Just wait 2 minutes. 2 minutes. All right, I just have one.
Just a minute or two,
all right,
Alice.
Maybe we should just call it that. Just, like, a minute or two. Brad Jones would appreciate that. Anyways.
You could call it Pay Me $5. Oh.
Could.
Dude, we have to do an episode on that scene.
Well, we should just do a paranoia.
We'll do a paranoia episode.
But anyways, look, we're getting off track here. I'm trying to make a final statement here.
What was the funny part about Keyboard Dog?
It being completely crazy and flaming. I'll cut this out.
I give up.
We're almost done out. It's just 1 minute of not speaking, and then we will speak, and you can speak again. Okay, Graham, finish your thought. Go.
All right. So my final thought is, Jonathan and I agree that with a bigger budget and with some sort of like constructive criticism, William Sikora is capable of making an yes level 4 film.
Or 5.
He gets an NA for this one, which is a 3, which is about middle of the road.
Which is good for your second short horror film.
Yeah, I mean, this is a
like,
person with
bad.
very few resources. You know, he basically made this movie by himself. I mean, you don't get much... There's very little indication that he even had a crew. I mean, it's just like sort of him filming, like me with Sir Facehead, like just turning the camera on and then like filming himself. It seemed to be like a lot of the movie was that. So I think, but the question I have is, wouldn't William himself make the argument like this was an extremely personal thing, and the flaws of this film are part of that personal touch? Like the fact that like I just made this movie as a personal statement, like all of the flaws and inconsistencies that you pointed out, well, that's part of the overall product. Like if I had taken advice from people and taken constructive criticism and made this more polished and professional, it wouldn't have been as personal. Wouldn't he have made that argument?
He might. I mean, if that's his argument.
But he would have been wrong, right?
Well, yeah, but that's his argument.
Well, I don't think this podcast though would have been as interesting if his movie had been perfect. So.
Well, if it was good, we might talk about it more positively, but I don't know.
I feel like if it were any better though, we might not have even bothered reviewing it. Well, no, that's not true.
No, because it had the epic end monologue that did need to be rewritten a little bit.
We certainly wouldn't have spent 71 minutes talking about a 42-minute movie if it had been a better film.
No,
That's
absolutely not. So, William, I added you on Instagram. Maybe I'll send you this podcast and you might ignore it. You might click on it and get mad. But hopefully you know we are fans. We subscribe
we love you.
to the William Sikora movies and like we will be watching what you release.
Yeah, we're going to watch your other 2 movies and whatever, like, you know, children's animation that you've done. I don't know what that
Dude, he has this
that's all
puppet
about.
show that looks kind of awesome. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
We're going to check that out too. So, William, we really hope that you hear this. We appreciate the hours and hours of hard work that you put into creating this.
Yeah.
Please keep making movies.
Yeah.
We are going to review your other 2 feature-length films, and
They're not feature-length.
or whatever, 40 minutes
He
as
has
well.
3, but one of them isn't available on Prime, so I don't even know how we'll watch that.
Anyways,
We'll figure it out.
Hopefully, you're honored to be the first director who was featured in the podcast. Your movie received a 3, which is an NA, which is pretty good considering the limited resources that you created this with. So,
Also, please don't be mad at us. If you really want to be mad, go read some of the people who gave it a 1 out of 5
yeah,
on Amazon
and also
Prime.
and anybody who's
Yeah.
like just like happens to be listening to this, like leave us your feedback, message us. If you think that we suck or you hated everything about this, be honest. And if you loved it, please also like flatter us so that we feel like we didn't waste our time doing this.
Yeah, and like give us a recommendation. If there's an all
Yeah.
no even an all yes film, because we'll be reviewing good movies on this.
Yeah, and you can't just be like, review Birdemic.
Yeah,
we're
no,
not
fuck
doing
that.
that, all
No,
right?
no, we're not reviewing
If you have an
Birdemic.
obscure film, if you have an obscure film that you would like us to take a look at that nobody has heard of, but that has, you know, interesting things that might be worth talking about for an hour and 13 minutes like we've done here, please send us your recommendation. And with that, you ready to conclude episode 1?
Yeah, all right, let's do it.
All right.
3, 2, 1.
Oh.
Or wait, Grant.
Wait,
Let me edit that out. We should finish it by saying whatever rating we gave it. So we'll finish by saying,
Yeah.
But I thought that...
whatever. We'll just call it, oh no. Whatever.
All right.
That's we're out.
All right, in it.
Bye.